speaking of a gentleman who I would still recommend hormone for support for, but probably we aren't going to say he needs it because he does seem to be in touch with his toxically masculine side. Let me bring on my friend Lance Migliaccio. How you doing today, Lance?
Hey, I'm good, Tom. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. I've got to tell you, I actually take hormone support. I think it's helpful. As you age, you always want to be on top of it. I'm lucky enough. I'm Italian, so my junk's still working great. I don't have a problem with it. But at the end of the day, of course, your hormones kind of get out of balance as you get older. Your growth hormone drops, your testosterone drops, your estrogen may potentially go up. So I think hormone support for the majority of people, I still work out and I still train. The idea is I think it's a great idea. So I'd highly recommend a product, especially if you're endorsing it. You're in good shape. It makes a difference. Makes life easier, right? It won't be as much of a struggle.
Well, and remember, I mean, not to just make it a full-on advertisement type thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a lot of environmental factors. I mean, they don't like men. They out there, the leftists, the globalists, these bad guys, they don't want men out there. They've done everything. I mean, there's so much crap in the air and just everywhere else. It just screws with your hormone levels and just makes it way, way lower than it ought to be. I mean,
I agree. It's a frightening thing. The environment is one of the impacts, but of course, foods are another one. You start getting into really what structurally is impacting hormone imbalance. My wife is an IFBB bikini pro competitor. She trains professional athletes all across the country.
Oh, really?
She trains celebrities and lots of other people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Very knowledgeable. She's got a non-invasive clinic that does like HIFU and M-Sculpt. So she's also got a medical clinic. So she's really on top of it. And I've got to keep my A game on because, of course, she's really attractive and she looks incredible. So at the end of the day, I do. But, it is really a combination of things that impact your hormones. So we could probably do a whole show on that. But at the end of the day, you have to be really aware of it because you are under attack constantly. And I do believe there is intent behind what's going on. You see the amount of beta males there are nowadays. You even look at the kids in school. They weren't like us. We were doing the presidential fitness awards, pull-ups and push-ups. We all wanted to look good. You look at the beach scenes in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there wasn't this tremendous morbid obesity.
No.
And I think that's one of the big issues. You have to think about it from the perspective. And staying on top of it, it's easier to maintain it than to lose it and regain it.
Yeah.
So, it's a whole different game. No doubt about it. So, I think for people, George is literally dieting right now. He's using some different supplementation to do it. And you got to keep your A game on, man. You got to keep and especially in this environment, the last thing you want to do is turn into a beta male. I know on this show, you get to keep your man card. Same thing goes for our show. We're a Bongino Army. A lot of the Bongino Army converts come over. It's all about keeping that man card, whether you're a man or a woman, because at the end of the day, man, we're definitely under attack from everything.
100%. Well, I think I do. I actually really believe that it's a legitimate effort to destroy men. I mean, listen, we fight. Like, it used to be we fight. I mean, you mentioned when we were kids, when we were kids, I literally remember, every single day we would go to the playground and we just fight. It wasn't hateful. We weren't trying to hurt each other. But we just battle each other. It's what we did. So we were boys, right? The king of the hill type stuff. See who's toughest, see who's baddest. And it's what we did. And the teacher, as long as no one was bleeding or crying, didn't really care because that's what boys used to do.
I was pretty active in combat sports at an early age. I did silver gloves in New York and took a second at 11-year-olds. I did golden gloves at the 12-year-olds and took a first. So I was always kind of like that anyway. And of course, I lived in Fordham Road in the Bronx. So I was out in the mix of it. And then I continued that. But it's interesting. These kids don't seem to have any interest. They're more focused on worrying about what pronoun they're going to use or what color dye they're going to put in their hair or whether or not somebody's hurt their feelings. I mean, we grew up hurting each other's feelings. That was part of the hobby, right? I mean, as kids, we were chopping on each other, at least in New York, and I can't speak for the rest of the country. It was second nature for us to insult each other nonstop all day long. I mean, we had hey, those are nice shoes. Do they make those in leather? Oh, that's a nice. What, did you steal your mom's tablecloth? I mean, we were doing, from end to end. And then, of course, I went on. I continued the combat sports. I trained literally in AKA, Jeet Kune Do, Enshin. These kids, the majority of them wouldn't go anywhere near that. And really, even in the sports arena, I'm just kind of surprised when I look at the kids that I see online. And I don't know if it's TikTok, Tom. I don't know if it's the fact that people are struggling to pay their bills and both parents are working jobs and the kids are left to their own and they're watching TV. They're playing video games and they're eating Totino's pizza rolls and Code Red Mountain Dew. I'm not sure what's happened, but it's definitely way different. This is not the kind of the kind of upbringing I remember. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, this isn't where I was going for the conversation, but it doesn't matter because it's a good one. And I'll tell you, so I just did and I'm going to pull it up real quick because I just did an article on some issues, some of the issues and some of the things that we're facing here. And I haven't published it yet. But, I mean, I don't think it's at all accidental. These kids, they're exposed to all these different things. So you got the BPA, BPS, BPF, right?
Yeah.
All of these things, they create issues with your nuts. Your testicles, they create issues with your hormone levels, and they're in everything, right? And they're from plastics. Everything that we consume is packaged in a plastic. Mm-hmm. I mean, that isn't how it used to be, right? And then, it used to be you go to the store, you got your raw meat, and they put it in a paper bag that was, soaked through by the time you got home. But, it was natural meat, not filled with all sorts of crap. It used to be that like our fields weren't full of, poisoned this and poisoned that. The soil's filled with glyphosate, atrazine, all these different things that make it way through our food and into our bodies. Your testosterone level is from birth just under attack. These kids end up growing up to be little hairy sissin like fairies instead of, learning to, hell, by second, third grade, if I wasn't fighting with somebody or ripping someone's, like you said, making fun of people was what we did. It's like whoever had the best insult was the funny guy for the day, right?
No doubt. We were all trying to be the class clown in our own way. And at the end of the day, none of us really were disturbed by it. We didn't go home and cry. No. We might have come back probably stronger because of it. I see a lot of times them talking about boomers online and otherwise. And it was really true. Our parents did have to be reminded at 10 o'clock, do you know where your children are? We were playing on rusty jungle gyms. We were drinking out of hoses. We were throwing, I remember having, throwing fireworks at each other, which was probably one of the stupidest things we did. But, we were shooting bottle rockets at each other, throwing M80s. You name it. Come 4th of July, it was a complete war on the street. These kids, I just see them crying online about, they used the wrong pronoun or somebody made fun of my hair. I can't grasp it. I have a difficult time wrapping my head around it. I'm not a big fan of TikTok. I think it's a communist China tool. I know it's been purchased now and supposedly it's going to change, but I don't think the best of it. I think the challenges on there are ridiculous. The challenge they've got on there is licking a toilet seat in a public restroom. That doesn't seem to be good common sense. And as far as what's affecting our testosterone, I believe you're right. I think the biome's been so ruined in the soil by what they've sold. And I don't care if it's Roundup or glyphosate or anything else you can possibly think of. You have to really focus on that the food has changed. Even the flavor of it has changed. When I travel, and I've been to 71 different countries, when I travel, I've got to tell you that I find myself in different parts of the world and the food tastes amazing. I come back here and the food is tasteless. It has changed, Tom. And anybody that doesn't think it has is really unaware of their surroundings because it just doesn't have the same flavor as when we grew up as children. I don't think the butter tastes the same. I don't think the meat tastes the same. I don't know if you've ever spent any time in Italy, but if you go to Italy, it's interesting that you can literally eat pasta and bread for 2 weeks straight and have no issue. You don't really gain any weight because, of course, the wheat is processed in a different way. You're not dealing with any hacking and coughing or anything that's triggered by the wheat and the bread products here. It's pretty much unbelievable. And we're under attack. I think we have to be aware of that.
Well, you're wading into one of the areas that I got some expertise, right? And, because I've done a lot of work on the Maha side of everything, including the food. And, I can just tell you, So you got Bayer Monsanto that's pushing out the glyphosate, the Roundup that gives you non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which of course they want you to have, because if you get non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, they can then sell you the treatment for it. But the thing about it is glyphosate kills pretty much everything. And so you say, well, wait a second, how is it that you spray it on the field and it doesn't kill the wheat or the soybeans or whatever? Well, here's the secret. They had to actually genetically modify these plants so that they survive, but nothing else does, because the glyphosate kills everything. So it stays in the soil, kills everything. I mean, think about this. When you drive by, for anybody, I live in Ohio, so we got farm fields galore. You drive by the farm field, how comes you never see any weeds anymore? There's no weeds. All you see is crops. Well, it's because the crops were genetically modified to survive the poison that they're spraying that kills literally everything else. So what we're eating is GMO poisons grown in poison to create more poison, and then we're feeding that same sort of poison to our animals. So it's getting through the food chain there. Plus, we're injecting the animals with mRNA vaccines and all sorts of other stuff. And that includes organic, by the way. You can have a cow that's eating all these poisonous foods and that's getting whatever gene therapy vaccines you want to give it, and they can still label it organic because there's huge loopholes in the Organic Food Act. So, I mean, that's why you're right. Our food isn't safe. That's why you get different food in Italy than you do here.
And I think, again, if depending on where you travel to, whether you're in Africa or otherwise, it's interesting because when you get there, you recognize that the fruits and vegetables are have a completely different and improved taste. And of course, they want to claim that we've got the best science here and that we've got the best farming technology, but I don't think that's the case anymore. No. I think that we've allowed the system to be weaponized against us when it comes to our, agriculture. I should call it the industrial agriculture complex. It's complicated. I don't think we're getting it. I don't buy into necessarily that the organic that's coming across the shelves can really be trusted otherwise. I know people say that, oh, you've got to eat this, but the difficulty comes, what do you do? Because that's the only thing on the shelves. Most of it don't live in a farm environment where maybe we can find a farmer that is doing true organic, or you can find a beef or chicken supplier that's really doing free range where they're not eating a bunch of material that's loaded with poisons. It's gotten really tough here in the United States. I often think about, given the right opportunity, would I continue to stay here? And I never felt like that before. I always wanted this to be the greatest country in the world. When I worked as a government contractor and I traveled during that time period, almost 40 different countries, working with, I worked for Blackwater USA and Halliburton and Wackenhut and G4S and Sabre. I got an opportunity to really, spend a lot of time on a lot of different people from a lot of different nationalities. And back then, people loved Americans. They thought it was the greatest country in the world. I don't know that would be the same reception I would receive if I was back in the game right now. I would bet that it's not.
No. Well, and it's sad. It's sad. I mean, listen, we've allowed, just on the food side, you got, man boobs himself, Bill Gates, providing health advice. Oh, I don't know. Please tell me how you get a guy like Bill Gates who looks like the villain from Despicable Me, with his man boobs and his fat belly and slunched over nerd physique. I mean, how the hell does that guy become the guy that's telling you what to do to be healthy? I
have to tell you, I actually sat one row across from Bill Gates on an airplane one day. I was traveling in first class. Can't remember where I was going. And for some reason, he wasn't on a private jet. And he sat there the whole time, just like this. He was reading and rocking. Huh. I don't know why we're taking health advice from this guy. He looked completely pasty. It looked like he'd never exercised in his entire life. I don't like the alleged 27 or 28 trips to Epstein Island. But this is the problem, right? Money gets you power and power gets you influence. Look at the meeting on tech that David Sachs held in Washington, D.C. I couldn't have been more pissed off when I saw Bill Gates sitting on one side and Mark Zuckerberg, Mr. Zuckerbucks, the guy that distorted our election system, sitting on the other side. Now, that's all because David Sachs did that. That, to me, was the worst set of optics that could have been for Donald Trump and Melania Trump, because both of those people, first of all, Bill Gates ought to be stopped dead in his tracks. If it wasn't that a fact that I could say something unsavory, I could think of several ways to deal with Bill Gates. And Mark Zuckerberg, why is he not facing criminal charges? At the end of the day, 400 and some odd $1 million to subvert our election. Why is he still walking around? Why? Because he's a billionaire. And that's the problem with the system. Even Washington, D.C., you mentioned Susie Wiles earlier. Get on the wrong side of Susie Wiles and you will be put into a black hole and never once again to be considered by the administration. But I've heard some horrendous stories about, ambassadorships being sold to the highest bidder and other things. Yeah. I'm not sure who's in the middle of that. I know you've probably heard some of the same things I have. I'm not a fan. I know she's the gatekeeper, but you're stuck with it. If you want to get any access to Donald Trump, and assuming you're a high level person, but this is what's happened. Money is buying the influence. It continues to go on. And I don't know how we fix it. That's my big concern.
Well, not just ambassadorships, but if you look at some of the rhinos that have taken key positions in the Republican Party across the country, there's some, let's say, rumors that those were bought and paid for too. And by rumors, I mean, I may or may not have seen some paperwork, but we'll leave it at that. It's appalling, but this is the problem we have. I like Trump, but Trump has never been good. His first term, he was surrounded by snakes, and we now are seeing how bad that is. And why do we think that suddenly his second term, he's figured it out, especially when we're 10 months in, 10 months, not a single prosecution of anybody of substance that's had any impact on our country. Oh, we're doing an investigation of George Soros. Okay, great. Why? So that Bondi can file, a jaywalking charge against him and then blow the case? I mean, it's like the case against Comey's a joke.
You are preaching to the choir. I looked at the Comey. Somebody called me up and said, "Oh, you heard about Comey?" I'm like, yeah, but it's not really what we need right now. You're talking about now. I'm okay with them going after low hanging fruit, Letitia James for mortgage fraud. But you and I both know, as a couple of legal beagles, you having much more experience than I do, the standard mortgage fraud case anywhere in the United States, federal indictment, doesn't only include the mortgage fraud or the bank fraud. It always includes wire fraud and cellular device use in the furtherance of a crime. Those are always added. Now, how come in this particular case, the initial indictment, now, again, I'm not talking badly about Lindsey Halligan. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. I don't know her, but she seems to be, number one, really hot. And number two, she seems to be really smart. I made that observation because George is single today. He was like, yeah, you're right. She is pretty hot. My point is this. She does, at least, she didn't wait for them. She knew she had the indictable charge. She didn't act like the previous prosecutor who clearly was bought and paid for. He wasn't going to bring any charges. But at the end of the day, that indictment was lacking. It looks to me like this was concurrent criminal enterprise. My understanding from the people that first discovered this case is this mortgage fraud started 42 years ago. And that means it was an ongoing criminal enterprise because the newest case is 2024. To me, that's concurrent criminal enterprise. It's RICO and racketeering. Again, I don't know that we have RICO because we don't have 5 or more, but she does have some involvement. She's got some family members. She actually, fraudulently indicated she'd married her father on some paperwork, my understanding is. And now also, she was also harboring a fugitive, her niece, I think it is, who's got outstanding warrants in other states, is living in one of the properties. There's a lot of questions here, but at least the standard part that normally happens in those mortgage frauds, I see that lacking. Low-hanging fruit, Adam Schiff, he's still walking around. He committed mortgage fraud, at least allegedly. My thought is this, Tom. Why does it seem to be so complicated when it comes to government officials and getting indictments? But if Tom Rentz commits a crime, if Tom Rentz committed mortgage fraud and the paperwork came out 3 months ago, Tom Rentz would have been indicted 2 months and 28 days ago. It wouldn't have even made it through. It wouldn't have been any time at all. If Lance Migliaccio got indicted for Foreign Agency Registration Act violations, or if I had committed treason and sedition or seditious conspiracy, they wouldn't wait. They would have indicted me on a basic charge, and then they would have done the standard operating procedure, right? Superseding indictment. So here we are, same thing. Okay, go for the low-hanging fruit, but how come 10 months in, I remember this whole thing. We caught them all. Again, I don't buy into that wait for the popcorn crap or any of that Q garbage. That's all just a psyop. My point is this. The cases are simple. We have the evidence, the dirty 51+8. The Russian collusion hoax is clear. We have crimes committed by the J6 committee that I think beyond the scope. We know that many of Joe Biden's appeals could be overturned. What are we freaking waiting for? And if Pam Bondi can't pull the trigger because she doesn't have the balls to do so, then let's replace her ass, because we only, like you said, we're almost a year in. What do we got? Another 2 years before they start really running campaigns to get the next person elected? So what
No,
we got?
we don't. We
24
only
months,
have
26 months?
we have 6 or 8 months, because then we got midterms, and if the Democrats win the midterms, guess who's going to be impeached? I mean, but here's the thing, like, I don't think that this is even a matter of whether Pam Bondi can pull the trigger. At this point, I'm asking who owns her, because it sure as hell listen, you look at how fast they tracked down and started going after J6ers. You look how fast. The DOJ has no budget. They can spend as much as they want. It doesn't matter. And their lawyers, listen, they are good lawyers. They have good lawyers there. They may be evil lawyers, but they're good lawyers. And at the end of the day, if they wanted to put these people in jail, listen, if I, as a nobody small town attorney from Ohio, could put together a RICO case to bring down guys like George Soros and Bill Gates, don't tell me the DOJ can't. It's not that they can't. They just don't want to. This is something that is achievable. It's doable. It's just there's no will, because the because is the key, right? Are they bought and paid for? Are they owned? Why? And that's the key thing here.
There are many other countries that have George Soros on an international watch list or international terrorist list. He's not welcome in those countries. Of course, Russia's one of them. Him and his son. Look at the Open Society. There's literally more than 64 NGOs in that network. They've been getting pass-throughs through USAID and otherwise. It is a global terrorist network. It takes no time to put that title on them. And of course, with international terrorist titling, that allows you military engagement, military enforcement. I agree with you, but you're right. The ass dragging, you and I could easily craft multiple indictments for all these people. And if you want to win the midterms, one of the easiest way to win the midterms is take away these people like George Soros that's funding these far left political operatives like Mondami in New York and others, right? If you want to win the midterms, lock them up. Take George Soros and Alexander Soros off the playing field. Take Bill Gates off the playing field. Take Pingani off the playing field. If you really want to make a difference, take away the money. And secondarily, how about indicting some of these senators for their crimes against the American people? How about going after Nancy Pelosi for insider trading? If you want to take Congress and you want to put the fear of God in them, do the same thing they would do to Tom Renz and Lance Migliaccio. They would grab us. They would try to shake us up, because let's face it, that's what they did for the J6 Fedsurrection. That was fear mongering. They didn't want people to peacefully protest. They had to put fear in them. If you want to get Congress turned around, then start arresting some people for the crimes they committed. Look, equal application of the law, rule of law, right? That's how it's supposed to work.
One would think.
But that's not what we have. Our justice system is weaponized. You've got a judiciary they're biased, and they're continuing, because what? When was the last time you heard of a judge being impeached? I haven't heard of an impeachment in like forever. And the point is, that's the only weapon you can use against a judge. But these biased rulings, it's like the Cracker Jack prize of the day. Every single day, some biased bullshit ruling comes out, and there's no consequences. Me personally, I'm president of the United States. I'm passing an executive order. No lifetime appointment, no absolute immunity. That's it. You guys don't get that anymore. So you better play by the rules, or you're going to face the consequences. It might only be temporary, but I try to do that. And of course, they would claim that that's non-constitutional. There's only one person that deserves absolute immunity, and that's God. And that he gets that for no reason at all. The rest of us, I don't think anybody deserves absolute immunity.
No. I mean, listen, I understand the argument for extension of a lot of leeway for judges and for the president. I understand the reason, but there's limits. There needs to be some common sense limits here. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you said, this double standard is it's appalling. It's literally the worst thing I've ever seen. And it's the reason, I mean, as Americans, we're all pissed off. Because we see, if you're George Soros, you get away with anything you want to get away with. You're Mark Zuckerberg, you're Bill Gates. I mean, Bill Gates and Borla. I mean, Borla literally is selling a contaminated vaccine that everybody knows is causing cancer. He's lying about it to their face, and then buying up cancer companies so that he can then sell treatments for cancer.
Yeah.
And instead of putting him in jail, we're bringing him to the White House to do deals.
And that's the problem, right? Because there really isn't any accountability for actions. We're not seeing consequences for people, even whether they're violating the law or they're selling something. What do they want? They want the pass. They're trying to pass legislation so that they're not responsible for anything to do with the consequences of any kind of weaponized or, vaccines that cause damage. Turbo cancer. I talked to a friend of mine that is in charge of the emergency ward at a clinic in Oklahoma, one of the big hospitals there. And he told me turbo cancer, they're seeing such an incredible wave of it. And he believes he knows what the reason is. But of course, nobody's talking about it in the hospitals. What's the plan? Treat the symptoms, don't treat the disease. Let's not get to the root cause of it. And this goes on. But I think my opinion, even in the judiciary, I don't think they deserve any longer to have absolute immunity. I don't think they need that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there's a saying that I use. It's pretty crude. Why does a dog lick his balls? Because he can. And the difficulty comes with the judiciary, right? The biggest problem is they are licking their balls over and over and over again because there is no oversight. There is no accountability. So when they listen, the theory is for the audience that when a judge comes into that courtroom, when he puts on that robe, he's supposed to hang up his bias at the door, right? It's supposed to be an unbiased courtroom, even playing field. That is not the case. Their politics are getting engaged constantly. And let's face it, when was the last time you even heard of a judge getting sanctioned? I would say exactly. When was the last time you heard the OPR bringing charges against a prosecutor or a judge?
Never. It doesn't happen.
When was the last time the OIG brought charges against prosecutors or a judge? Never. When was the last time the Civil Rights Division Harmeet Dillon is posting every single day. I don't see her bringing any cases against DOJ or judges for them violating people's civil rights. She'll post about knitting hats. She's knitting lots of hats, and I don't know Harmeet Dillon, but if she came on my show, I'd freaking ask her, when are you going to charge some people? At the end of the day, you don't see any of the federal agents getting charged when they're violating, or they're eavesdropping on attorney privilege phone calls, or they're destroying exculpatory evidence. Well, what about PIN, the Public Integrity Division? When was the last time they brought sanctions and charges against it? When was the last time a bar association in any state actually moved to have a judge or a prosecutor disbarred? It's unheard of. It doesn't happen, Tom.
Well, and if you bring a complaint to the Bar Association as an attorney, you're going to get retaliated against in a profound way. I will tell you that.
100%. And if you bring a complaint against a judge, tell me the judiciary, it doesn't matter whether you're in district court or an appeals court, if you don't craft your complaint in a way that's a soft sell, and you actually start bringing up terms like fraud on the court, mischaracterization of documentation, not receiving.
Good luck with that.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen to you in that system, Tom?
You're going to end up finding yourself sanctioned and disbarred one way or another, or blackballed for sure. I mean, it's not even close. And we're not supposed to say that, but there's a lot of things we're not supposed to say. And I mean, this kind of goes to the core of it. Like, for some reason, instead of prosecuting people and putting people in jail, the Trump administration has decided that the better solution is to do things like, I don't know, pretending the Epstein list doesn't exist so you can continue blackmailing people, I guess.
Tom, don't talk about Epstein.
Oh, yeah. I'll lose my mega status. Tom.
Yeah, we're still talking about Epstein on our show. And you're right. At the end of the day, we know the list exists. I've talked to lots of people, and I knew one FBI agent that participated in the raid of every 4 of the locations. So that's the New York brownstone, that's the New Mexico property, that's the Palm Beach property, and the Lolita Island, right? And he told me there is reams of information. There is tons of evidence. He doesn't know where it all ended up. They pulled out zip drives and hard drives and printed copies and audio tapes. There were sophisticated levels of Mossad Israeli-generated surveillance equipment in every one of those residences. They pulled it out. It was all Israeli-driven software and hardware, which, of course, makes total sense. And when you look at Epstein's track record, he never made a legitimate dollar in his entire life. Everything was based on extortion, bribery, blackmail, and insider trading. So if he got in the circle, it was because he got information. He could execute on a trade because he knew about an acquisition. So he would compromise people, and then he would use that blackmailed material to get insider information or other opportunities. And of course, Part of it was also working with intelligence organizations. And I am positive he was working with not only the Mossad and CIA, but other global networks because he could sell the data and information.
MI6.
No doubt. 100%. And my point is, stop bullshitting us. I'm tired of the bullshit. Listen, I don't need mommy and daddy government filtering this crap. I need direct, on point, legitimate truth, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Well, that's it, right? So, like, listen, I get it. Our government's corrupt. It's been corrupt. All the governments are corrupt. And I got to be honest with you, Lance. So I'm curious your thoughts on this. Yeah. So I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro-Jewish. I'm against the current government of Israel, though, because they're corrupt as crap. But here's the thing. Like, I'm watching Benjamin Netanyahu spend $1 or $2 billion to fund Hamas through Qatar. Mm-hmm. And yet, I see this online. You got on one side, you got, oh, you're against Israel. And then the other side, oh, you're against Palestine. Listen, I'm not okay with a bunch of terrorist lunatics in Palestine killing everybody that they can. And I'm also not okay with Israel funding Hamas through Qatar so that their own people get killed so they can justify bombing, Palestine. The whole thing is dirty. Why do I got to support any of it? I support the country of Israel. I support the Jewish people. I don't support the corruption, but I don't support the corruption in the United States either. We just spent the last 10 minutes bitching about Pam Bondi and the corruption that we're dealing with. Don't tell me I can't call out corruption in another country.
No doubt. I agree wholeheartedly. But let me frame this what I'm about to say very carefully for the audience. So nobody calls me an anti-Semite. First of all, my mom's Jewish, which of course makes me Jewish. Anybody that understands how that works. So I'm Jewish. So I'm a Jewish Italian, and I'm an Italian more. My family's from Sicily, so I kind of have a mix. I'm almost. In fact, I tease my wife. My wife is from South Africa. I'm actually, if you look at the history of the Italian Moors, the Sicilians, of course, you know that we're predominantly black. So I'm kind of this black Jew Italian, right? So it's kind of a strange mix, but it gives me the potential of a lot of latitude to say what I think. I worked around Mossad years ago when I was working for Blackwater USA and when I was working for United Defense and Halliburton. There was different times when I was on different training programs where I would training people in CQB tactics, and I was working with when we were doing diplomatic security and facility security. I worked around Mossad, current Mossad, retired Mossad. And there's only one thing about Mossad you have to be very clear about when it comes to those agents. Number one, they're extremely skilled, highly skilled individuals, and they're very serious about it. But they are only about one thing: making Israel great again. It's all about Israel. Nobody else matters. First of all, Israel is not the ally that we operate in this country as if they are. They could give a flying shit about us if it wasn't for the fact that they need the United States finances and they need the United States military support. I don't think they could give three shits about us. Now, I'm not saying that about the Israeli people. The Israeli people are amazing people, but Netanyahu is a scumbag. I don't trust him at all. I don't think he has the best intent for this country or any of his allies. I think he's always got a nefarious game plan behind the scenes. I don't think he can be trusted. I think it's obvious he can't be trusted. I don't think that war would be ending. And he's always had the intent to take over all of Palestine. That's always been one of his agendas. And I don't think that's good for it. No doubt about it. That's his intent. So here's my thing. The Israeli people, I agree with you. Look, I'm pro-Israel. I'm pro every country, and meaning that every country has a right to make themselves great. That's what that's about. For Putin, I expect that his whole focus is Russia. For the Israeli people, I expect their whole focus is Israel, and I don't harbor that against them. That's how it should be. But don't sit here and bullshit me and tell me how come you're like my best ally in the world. Israel's never really done anything for us. If you look at the history, go back to the USS Liberty. If anybody wants to find some horrendous stuff about Israel, go look up the story about the USS Liberty when they didn't want to be surveilled. And of course, what did they do? They attacked a U.S. warship. It was a communication ship. But you look about that, many Americans died on that boat. They did it because it was good for Israel. It wasn't good for the country, U.S. And of course, the United States government and the media covered it up. But if you guys want to do some homework, USS Liberty, go look at it. Ask about what happened with Israel and the USS Liberty. I'm not going to go into it now, but my point is this. Every country has a focus. Don't sit here and bullshit me that somehow you're my ultimate ally. Because at the end of the day, if we get into a fight, I don't think Israel is going to be that important to us in that fight. I don't think they've got enough land mass. I don't think they have enough people, and I don't think they have enough armament to make a difference in protecting the United States. For me, I'm focused on one thing. I'm an American, but I'm only worried about making America great again. And I'm only worried about making America and getting rid of this corrupt institution we call a government, because it's not about partisan politics. That's a sham. So as far as how people feel about it, I don't think these kinetic events when so many innocent civilians, it's kind of like the guy that's highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat going into a bar and picking a fight with some uneducated, unsophisticated person and beating the crap out of them proves nothing. If you really want to prove yourself as a warrior, then face off against a guy that has the same pedigree as you. Face off with a guy that's just as skilled with you, that understands combat. Now you want to prove something? Okay, that's fine. I think these events and the nonstop military industrial complex push, or the people like that sack of shit Lindsey Graham, I don't understand why Trump keeps supporting that guy. That is the most beta piece of shit. And he's so paid and bought and paid for. And that's the problem, right? These people in Congress should be wearing NASCAR jackets. They should have NASCAR jackets for all the endorsements. Because at the end of the day, that's all it is anymore. It's one big grift. So Netanyahu, I don't trust him. I don't like him. The Israeli people deserve better. And I am definitely pro for them. I'm definitely pro for them taking care of themselves in their own country. I don't want to see the Israeli people suffer, but I don't want to see the Palestinians suffer either. Just because you can in kinetic war events doesn't mean you should.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, our foreign policy is like everything else. But I mean, listen, our policy towards the Netanyahu government's not hard to understand. We give them billions of dollars. They launder it. They funnel it back to our politicians, and then our politicians vote for them again. It's not complicated. It's 100%. The same thing that pharma does. We spend billions of dollars through Medicare, Medicaid. They launder it through their company. They send it back to the politicians, and it's repeat, rinse and repeat. But this is one of the things that I don't think people understand. If we had, and this isn't going to happen anytime soon, if we had a balanced budget amendment, where Congress couldn't just print money and give it to whoever they want to launder the money and give it back to them. At that point, it would change everything. Why does a balanced budget matter? Well, you see, our founding fathers assumed that we would have a balanced budget. They didn't know we were just going to ignore the fact that if you don't have money, you shouldn't spend it. And so they didn't write that in there. But I mean, at the end of the day, the reason that we have this profound level of fraud and corruption is because we just print money. We give it to whoever's going to give it back to our elected officials. They give it back to the elected officials, and the elected officials vote again to give more money. And we do that. We do that to not just Israel, not just Big Pharma, but to many of our allies, many of the things that are around there. And now it's really interesting. We've got this kind of socialist movement that Trump's got going on. And I don't know how else to describe it, but he's taking ownership of certain private companies now as part of trade deal, part of deals with these private companies, where the U.S. is taking an ownership stake in some of these private countries. That's literally socialism. It's literally socialism. It's
dangerous, right? Because we've already got a twisted narrative that the American public is getting to a point where they don't trust it. But I agree with you. Look, these politicians and the way that they're greased, and I don't care whether it's super PACs, lobbyists, NGOs, foundations, book deals, you name it. All that stuff should be stopped dead in its tracks. And they should start limiting how much you can use for a congressional run. These people are raising millions and millions of dollars to get a job that pays $174,000 a year. Sure, I understand there's a bunch of other grift in there where you can get your meals paid for and you get travel and you can get this and you can get that if you're on a committee. But at the end of the day, $174,000 job, does it make any sense that these people are spending 5, 10, 15, 20, $30 million to get that job? Absolutely not, because it's all about the power and the corruption. Look at this. Simple enough, Tom. Go ahead and put Tom Renz and Lance Migliaccio in charge of USAID. Watch how quickly I start clawing back all the money. I'd go seize Chelsea Clinton's $11 million mansion that she bought with the $84 million she was given by USAID. She'd be kicked out and on the curb within hours. There's so many others. Look at Bill Crystal, social media influencer. I couldn't figure out how the guy could be such a negative prick every day. I was watching him and then, how can this guy post so negatively every single day? Isn't it just eating his soul? Well, I figured it out. He's getting $8 million a year. So he probably just hired somebody to post for like $100,000 a year, overpaying him, just said, hey, just take care of this for me. And he's pocketed all the rest of it. That's the corruption. Look at the book deals. Are you telling me that anybody's even going to buy Kamala Harris's book? So she gets a $24 million book deal. What about Joe Biden? Is anybody going to buy that book? No, it's a grift. It's how they do it. They figure a way to put the money back. Because let's face it, these politicians on both sides of the aisle, they're a bunch of corrupt SOBs. We'd be lucky if there's 10 or 15 honest men and women. Maybe Massey's one, maybe Paul Rand, Ron Paul's one, maybe, I don't know. Maybe Byron Donald's another one. I mean, I'm not sure anymore. I think there's a handful. Let's face it. If we started, let's even say this. If we went and hair follicle tested every congressional member tomorrow morning and drug tested them, how many do you think would fail, Tom?
I think the better question is how many do I think would pass?
Exactly. Now, here's my next question. If we audited tomorrow morning, you and I ran into Congress and we took every electronic device, every cell phone, every pager, every computer from every congressional office, every congressional, anybody that's working for congressmen and all the congressmen, how many of them would we find were committing crimes on those communication devices?
I will be real honest with you, Lance. I'm going to be 100%. I don't think that there would be a single person in Congress that I couldn't find a criminal charge to file against. And some of them, I think, are trying to be honest. There's a couple people in Congress I really like, and I don't think they're dishonest. But the system is so corrupt, and there's so much that even if you try to be honest, I don't think you can be. I think there's going to be something you're doing wrong somewhere because it's just that broken.
And
I
the
don't think
system
that
is
anyone,
that bad. Because you're putting average people, right? They come out of a lot of average situations. They're not Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, right? You take a person, you give them $174,000 a year, you stick them in Washington, D.C., and now they're sitting next to the CEO of Pfizer. They're talking to Larry Ellison from Oracle. They're talking to people that have private jets and private islands, and they're being told, hey, Tom, I'm so happy you're now the senator. If you ever want to come down to my private island and just hang out, or if you ever want to use my private jet, or if you want to come to our party on New Year's Eve, I'll pay for everything. You can come. My point is, I really do believe that the senators and the House of Representatives members are underpaid. But with that comes a caveat. I would pay them much more than they're currently getting. But then there would be no book deals, no insider trading, no freaking super PACs, no foundations, no NGOs. There'd be no absolute immunity, none of that stuff. That would all be gone. There'd be random drug screening. You'd all get paid, and I would put a limit on what they can spend on any congressional run. And here's the last caveat. If you want to get paid, you have to balance the budget during your term. And if you want to run for re-election, you also have to have that balanced budget. You can't run for re-election if the budget isn't balanced and you haven't followed all the rest of the rules. At the end of the day, we have to take away the greed and avarice, and we have to take away, of course, their want of wanting to participate in it.
100%. So we got a few minutes left, and I want to go to a couple just kind of, I don't know, fun things that are just random.
Yeah, let's go. Wait, you were going to torture me with boofing. What the frick is boofing?
I want to go to boofing. So I've got this up on my
Hold on. La 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 la. No, go ahead.
Yeah, get ready. So Maine headline, and I'm going to show you the headline here. Maine is handing out free boofing kits to help fentanyl addicts squirt drugs up their butts. So this is a headline.
I want to say that's far worse than I thought it was going to be. That's a visual that's probably not going to go away anytime soon.
No, it shouldn't. And so Mike, can we? Yeah, okay, you got it up here. So this is actually a headline. So I post on it, and I brought up some of the pictures. So here you have a nice graphic. You can see the booty, the squirter, having trouble finding a vein. Want to give your veins a break to restore themselves? Try boofing. So
nice.
We're not. I mean,
the Massachusetts, you said
Maine.
Correct? Maine. So the Maine taxpayer is paying for this. It's kind of an anal basting kit, as if you were going to baste a turkey. You get that going. Here's my thing, Tom. Can we expect the promotion in the future on the Tom Renz Show where maybe if new subscribers get a boofing kit?
Listen, if I can find someone to give me boofing kits, I'll sell them because I'm a grifter. And here it is, by the way. This is the boofing kit. You can use these syringes to inject your heroin or other opioids directly into your anus and enjoy, I guess.
Here's my question for you. Having not known what boofing was prior to the show, but I had heard stories of people dying from they were having liver or kidney function because they were alcoholics, and they decided to put wine or other liquor up their butthole, and they died from it.
Yeah.
Isn't the receptors inside of an intestine? Aren't you at higher risk of overdosing if you're jamming stuff up your rear end?
I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't have a lot of experience with that, so I don't.
And that's why I'm on your show, because you don't.
I gotta tell you, Lance. When I look at this, the fact that they have this as an instruction manual, grab a syringe without a needle, they have to specify without a needle and the smallest barrel you can get. So apparently that's how we're boil and heat some sterile water and use your syringe to suck the water up the needle to mix with the drugs. Place the drugs in a cooker, swirl around until mixed, dip the syringe into the mixed water, pull back on the plunger until the water is gone. Use some lube, which, I guess we're glad we're using the small barrel here, either on the barrel or your bum to lube for a smoother slide into your bum. This is serious. This is our taxpayer.
I think they also have a version of this called the Don Lemon kit, where the barrel is much bigger.
Yeah. This is a new level of creepy. The people in Maine are willing to put up with this. I think it's ridiculous. Of course, fentanyl, one of the biggest scourges in the United States, just, thousands and thousands of people's lives being ruined, tens of thousands of people dying. And here's Maine trying to help you do it versus maybe getting them some help to maybe clean up. Look, it sounds like another thing where they want to just have people kill themselves. I can't imagine that this is a good system. And I think that if I'm right about what I remember about alcoholics, because I remember reading a story years ago about some guy that was having shut down his liver and kidney from being an alcoholic for too long. And he decided to ingest his wine, through his anus. And I heard that he died. This was a story that had circulated online. I don't know how much truth, but it was because that you get too much too quick. I'd have to believe this is the same consequence with this idea, but I don't know. I would guess here for anybody that wants more information. If you're in Maine, here's some statewide program phone number. If any of you are really interested, this was published in the newspaper. So, I guess I can share it because I want to provide this public service announcement to any of you that may or may not be considering getting a boofing kit to squirt your drugs up your butthole. You can call the statewide program here for Maine, and you can ask them, feel free to ask them, maybe they can help you figure out what type of lube to use. Yeah. I've heard sandpaper's no good. And
feel free to go for the Don Lemon barrel.
Yeah, well, listen, for people that have questionable partners like Big Mike, Michelle Obama, Obama might be using the Don Lemon barrel. I've heard
he probably goes for the bigger barrel. He likes that big. He wants a baby's arm holding an apple. That's what he's thinking about when it comes down to what he really wants. Look, here's the deal. This is the kind of garbage that's really undermining our country. And the fact that the people in Maine are actually allowing this to happen, shame on them. But of course, this is when you have a broken election system where politicians are installed. Anything to create division and chaos and stupidity, this falls right in there.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I ran into this a few days ago, and I've been pretty excited to talk about it on the show ever since. So honestly, Lance, I'm pretty excited that I got to talk to you about this.
I'll get to have nightmares about it tonight.
I felt like you were the perfect guy to chat with about boofing and. Right here. Boofing is an injection alternative where a person inserts their drugs into their rectum, but to allow absorption through the mucous membrane. This is your tax funding at work, folks. Congratulations,
Imagine
Maine.
if they can figure out how to inject the news like that from mainstream media.
Well, it might be. I don't know whether it's worse than fentanyl or not, but it's either way. Either way, I'm praying for death.
CNN could boof all their information.
Yeah.
That way, it would go exactly where it belongs.
Lance, I got to tell you, I appreciate you joining me. Listen, everybody, if you aren't watching the Big Mig Show, you need to be watching it. These guys are awesome. Lance become my buddy, and George is awesome as well. Make sure you're supporting the Big Mig Show. You got at the Big Mig Show on X. Where else they
Yeah,
get
you can find us on X under Lance Migliaccio and G Ballantine and the Big Mig Show on X. Of course, you come to our website, thebigmig.com. But our main home base is Rumble and Locals, so you can go over there for the Big Mig Show. So that show is 11 a.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Standard. And of course, we also have the #1 crypto show on Rumble right now. So we're pretty excited about that. That show is 9 a.m. Wednesdays, and of course, 9 a.m. on Fridays. And if you want to find out about crypto, we have a great education piece. We get top interviews, and we cover all the top news and, of course, new projects. So if you really want to learn about crypto, stop in there, because we really do throw it down on that show.
These guys are great. They're a lot of fun, and I consider them friends. So make sure you're supporting the Big Mig Show. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. We will be back very soon.
Thank you for watching the Tom Renz Show. Join us live
Thanks,
Monday
Lance.
through Friday at 4
Hey,
p.m.
thanks, Tom. I
Eastern,
appreciate it.
putting
I hope
an
that went the way you
axe
wanted.
in the skull of tyranny.
The MAGA revolution in cryptocurrency is here, reclaiming financial freedom for every American. Tired of globalist banks and deep state control? Blockchain is our weapon for sovereignty. Be a step ahead with Animus AI technology. Ranked #1 worldwide, exclusively available through Block Trust IRA. But beware, the wild ride volatility and scams lurk. Yet, with Trump-era policies like the Genius Act, we're tokenizing prosperity for veterans and the heartland. Globalist elites are panicking as leftist-controlled banks scrabble in the dust as MAGA investors access revolutionary technology. Reclaim your freedom with Block Trust IRA.
Join the fight to protect your wealth. Go to TomRunsCrypto.com and talk to Block Trust IRA now.
Listen live to The Tom Renz Show Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern.